Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, veterans and their families. Thank you for gathering here on this solemn Confederate Memorial Day at Cedar Grove Baptist Church. In the late 1850s, this corner of Florida was a rugged frontier filled with challenges. The federal government wasn't doing enough about the Seminole raids. County commissioners weren't fixing the terrible roads, and the looming presidential election had neighbors arguing at every crossroads store. Into this wild, untamed land came families from Georgia, the Carolinas, and Alabama, dreaming of a better life. And instead, they found themselves caught up in the whirlwind of war. Now today, this quiet cemetery at Cedar Grove serves as a living time capsule of those pioneer families. The weathered stones tell stories of courage, loss, sacrifice, and endurance. So let me share just a few of them with you. The oldest marked grave here belongs to a 2-day-old baby girl, the daughter of Milton Washington Johnson. Milton was born in Sampson County, North Carolina, in 1828. As a boy, he moved with his parents to Sonoma in the 1840s. He first wore a uniform as a young man in the Seminole Wars, serving with the U.S. Army. Years later, at age 35, he answered the call again, this time for the Confederacy. He joined Company B of Munnerlin's Battalion, better known as the Florida Cavalry. This unique unit wasn't formed to charge across the battlefields like Gettysburg or Chickamauga. Its mission was vital: protect Florida's cattle herds from the Union raiders and drive thousands of beeves north to feed the Confederate troops. It was organized by Captain John T. Leslie of Tampa, a veteran of the Indian Wars, and Company B's roles read like a who's who of early Hillsborough County. Headquartered near present-day Plant City at Ishapacasa, these men patrolled vast stretches of wilderness, sometimes riding all the way to the shores of Lake Okeechobee. Captain Leslie himself led daring actions, including repelling the Union forces at Bayport near Brooksville. Milton Johnson survived the war but died in 1867, just 2 years after Appomattox, and he left behind his wife Maria and a large family. Nearby rests William G. Miley, who never made it home. Born in Alabama in 1836, William's family became some of the first white settlers in the Sonoma area after the Second Seminole War. At age 25, he enlisted in Company B, 7th Florida Infantry. Captured in the Florida Panhandle, he was sent to Key West as a prisoner of war, and he died there on April 15, 1865. Only 2 months before Lee's surrender. He left no children. His parents had 4 sons, 3 who served, and of those 2 perished, only 1 would survive. The Johnson and Miley families became forever linked when Milton's brother Enoch Johnson married Lucinda Ann Miley. Their son, the Reverend James Johnson, served as a boy in the Cavalry alongside his father, and is buried here beside his beloved wife, Mary Jane, who outlived him, passing in 1940. Andrew Giddens was born in Georgia in 1826, and like so many here, he had already fought Seminoles as a young man. During the war between the states, he served in the 1st Florida Cavalry, dismounted. Captured at the brutal Battle of Missionary Ridge in Tennessee in November of 1863, he endured 18 months at Rock Island Prison in Illinois, one of the harshest northern camps, with a mortality rate near 17%. He survived, but he often told how his hair turned snowy white during those long, bitter winters. After the war, he drew a Confederate Veterans pension until his death, and his wife, Emmeline, received a widow's pension until her own death. He lived out his days in this community, a living witness to both frontier wars and civil strife. One of the longest-lived Confederates buried here was Benjamin Franklin Carter, Sr., born in Alabama. He lost both parents and a brother to pneumonia in the 1850s. Raised by a neighbor, David Mizell, a relative of my own wife's family, he eventually joined Captain William B. Watson's company, Company D of the Cavalry, in March 1864 at Mellonville, today's Sanford. He buried yet another brother who was lost in the war. After losing 2 wives, he married Martha Mattie Hood here and raised 3 children. When he passed, Mattie drew a widow's pension of $480 a year until her death in 1938. Benjamin himself lived to age 89, and in patriotic spirit, he registered for U.S. military service in 1932, just before he died. He was a founding member of this church and a true survivor. Enoch Johnson, another veteran, became a powerful voice after the war. He served as president of the Lafayette Democrats and was known as an orator who could stand the likes of Webster or Clay or Calhoun. In an 1880 letter to the editor, just 4 years before his death, he urged his neighbors to support the Democratic ticket and the Confederate veteran William D. Bloxam for governor, writing passionately about the, quote, sad experience of 18 or 20 years of corrupt rule, unquote, referring to the bitter years of Reconstruction. Research indicates that none of these soldiers owned any slaves. Ladies and gentlemen, these are only a handful of the stories resting beneath these stones. Each marker represents a man who left his fields, his cattle, and his family to defend what he believed was his home. Many had already fought the Seminoles in the 1850s. When the war came again, they answered once more, not always for grand causes, but for the families and the land they loved. Today, on Confederate Memorial Day, we do not gather to debate the politics of the past. We gather to remember the human cost of war and the courage of ordinary men and the pioneer spirit that helped shape Florida. We honor their service, mourn their losses, and give thanks for the descendants who can still call this place home. Any descendants of these men, lineal or collateral, are certainly eligible to join in the Sons of Confederate Veterans, the Male Descendant Heritage Honor Society. May God bless all our veterans, this congregation, and those assembled here today. May we always remember the sacrifice, lest we forget. Thank you.